Some places look perfect online. Then you get there, and reality hits much harder than expected. This video is not about bad destinations. It is about places that are famous for a reason, but are often sold in a much softer, easier, and prettier version than the one travelers actually meet on the ground. And that matters, because the problem is not always the destination itself. Very often, it is the expectation. This video is not about bad destinations. It is about places that are famous for a reason, but are often sold in a much softer, easier, and prettier version than the one travelers actually meet on the ground. And that matters, because the problem is not always the destination itself. Very often, it is the expectation. At number 10, the Bahamas. Online, it looks like pure tropical ease. Turquoise water, bright sand, boats, beach clubs, and that effortless Caribbean fantasy. And yes, that side is real. But what disappears from the polished version is how uneven the experience can feel once you move outside the clean postcard frame. Official U.S. guidance still says violent crime can occur anywhere in the country, with most crime concentrated in Nassau and Freeport. And that alone changes the emotional feel of what many travelers assume will be a simple paradise trip. So the issue here is not that the Bahamas is fake, it is that the online version often looks smoother, safer, and easier than the real travel experience can feel. At number 9, Tulum. Tulum has been sold as the ultimate barefoot luxury dream. Jungle hotels, wellness aesthetics, soft light, minimalist beach clubs, and curated calm. But in real life, Tulum often feels much less magical than the image suggests. The logistics can be frustrating, the roads can be messy, the traffic can be draining, the prices can feel inflated, and the commercial side is much harder to ignore once you are actually there. And beyond the aesthetic layer, official U.S. guidance for Quintana Roo still warns about criminal violence in the wider state and urges extra caution after dark in areas like Cancun, Tulum, and Playa del Carmen. Tulum still photographs beautifully. That is exactly why it makes this list. At number 8, Kyoto. Kyoto is one of the world's strongest cultural fantasies. Quiet lanes, temples, traditional streets, old Japan preserved, and those things are real. But what many travelers underestimate is how much tourism pressure changes the feeling of the city, especially in the most iconic districts. The online version makes Kyoto feel meditative, empty, almost suspended in time. The real version can be far more crowded, more structured, and much less intimate than people expect. That does not make Kyoto disappointing. It makes it one of the clearest examples of a place where the emotional expectation can easily become bigger than the experience can realistically deliver. At number 7, the Amalfi Coast. This is one of the clearest fantasy destinations in Europe. Cliffs, sea, terraces, pastel towns, expensive-looking hotels. Everything about it feels cinematic. But this is also one of those places where beauty and friction live side by side. In peak season, roads get crowded, transfers slow down, movement between towns becomes more stressful than people expect, and the whole trip can feel much more logistical than romantic. What travelers often romanticize is not the place itself. It is the edited version of moving through it with no stress, no queues, no transport pressure, and no cost anxiety. That version is not what most people actually get. At number 6, Phuket. Phuket gets sold in two ways at once: tropical paradise and accessible luxury. And parts of Phuket absolutely can feel beautiful. But one of the biggest mismatches here is how many people arrive expecting calm and discover a much busier, more built-up, and more commercial resort environment than they imagined. It is not just about the beaches. It is about the broader atmosphere. The online version strips away the traffic, the density, the overdevelopment, and the mass tourism feel that can dominate parts of the island. That gap between image and actual holiday atmosphere is why Phuket lands here. If you like travel content that helps you see the real picture before you book, subscribe to CHA87 Travel Guide. At number 5, Paris. Paris may be the most romanticized city on Earth. No city benefits more from carefully framed images. The fantasy is timeless. Beauty, romance, cafes, architecture, elegance, soft light. And Paris absolutely has that side. But what gets cut out is how intense the city can also feel. The queues, the density, the cost, the pressure of trying to do Paris properly, and the theft risks in major tourist areas and transport zones. Paris is still one of the world's great destinations, but it is also one of the clearest examples of a place many people fall in love with first as an idea. At number 4, Dubai. Dubai is romanticized in a very specific way: seamless luxury. The online version is all skyline, rooftop pools, perfect hotels, polished restaurants, glossy malls, and high-end control. But what many first-time visitors do not expect is how curated the experience can feel. The heat can be exhausting, the scale can be tiring, and the city can feel much more car-dependent and manufactured than the fantasy suggests. Dubai is not disappointing because it lacks spectacle. It is disappointing for some travelers because the emotional reality feels less organic than the online promise. At number 3, Bali. Bali has become one of the internet's biggest dream destinations. It gets sold as peace, spirituality, jungle luxury, softness, healing, freedom, and escape. And that version does exist in parts. But Bali is also one of the places where social media has probably distorted reality the most. Traffic, crowding, overdevelopment in certain hotspots, inflated expectations, and the gap between the image and the lived experience can hit hard. A lot of people arrive expecting stillness. What they get instead depends heavily on where they go, how they move, and how much of the internet version they believed. That is why Bali lands so high. At number 2, Venice. Venice is one of the most extraordinary places in the world. That is exactly why it is so heavily romanticized. The fantasy is quiet canals, timeless beauty, mystery, elegance, and stillness. The reality, on many days, is crowd pressure. Day trippers, tour groups, limited space, seasonal congestion, and the feeling that the city is carrying more people than the fantasy version admits. Venice has gone far enough in responding to over-tourism that the city's access fee system is now official policy on selected days. Venice is still extraordinary, but it is one of the clearest examples of a place where the fantasy and the lived experience often drift very far apart. And at number 1, Santorini. Because few places on Earth are sold harder as a perfect dream. White buildings, blue domes, sunset views, honeymoon energy, luxury terraces, volcanic beauty. It is one of the strongest destination fantasies in global travel. And that is exactly the problem. Santorini is so visually powerful online that people arrive expecting a flawless emotional experience. But in real life, peak season crowds, packed viewpoints, cruise pressure, limited space, and infrastructure strain can change the entire atmosphere. It is still beautiful. It is still famous for a reason. But no place on this list is more romanticized relative to how pressured the real experience can become. That is why Santorini is number 1. The problem with these places is not always the destination itself. Very often it is the version people build in their heads before they ever get there. So which place do you think reality hits hardest?